the Eminence in Shadow episode 7, and in this episode we get a huge development of the plot. I think I can say pretty surely and solidly that this is the episode that has definitely had the most advancement of the plot in just 24 minutes, or more precisely in around 20 to 21 minutes, because I mean the amount of things that made the plot advance were a lot of things that happened in this episode. So many scenes that were important to the advancement of the development of the plot. And yeah, like I said, 20 to 21 minutes packed with a lot of action, with a lot of funny scenes. So I mean, this is definitely one of those episodes that is up there in terms of greatness. I mean, just to name a few, there was the interaction and fight between Oriana and Cid. There was the further interaction between Cid and Cherry, and then there was the ending scene where the school got attacked. So yeah, a lot of things happened in this episode and so many things to talk about. But I guess I should start talking about the first thing that happened in this episode, or I should say the first most important thing that happened in this episode. And this was, I guess you can say, the information that New gave to Cid about the code, about there being members that are powerful. For example, I think she mentioned that it was the third child, something like that, that did the brainwashing, you know, the ones that were only mentioning Shadow's guardian's name. Well, apparently that was the work of the third child. And she also mentions the first child, which I think she said his name was Rex. Apparently he's being seen in the city, so yeah, that is definitely something really important. So yeah, that is one of the first things we learn about in this episode. And then the episode proceeds to introduce us to this fight, to this fencing fight, in which also Cid is a part of, not because he wanted to, but because his friends basically made him do it. And there are people there like Cid's sister, Oriana, and probably other powerful people. So yeah, we get into that part of the episode with the fight between Cid and Oriana. And apparently Oriana, if I'm not mistaken, it was mentioned that she's the president of the student council, a very powerful character indeed. And yes, of course, being Cid, the character that he is, he had to do the thing. He had to act in a way that he was acting as a background character, and he did that perfectly. I didn't thought at any moment that Cid was actually going to fight in the tournament and perform well. I actually didn't thought he was going to fight with his full power, or even at least with a percentage of his power. Of course, I didn't think that, because at this point in time, you should already expect that Cid is not going to show his powers in his normal Cid character. So yeah, of course, that didn't happen. And it was actually pretty funny how he handled the battle. Of course, at the end of the day, he didn't really get what he wanted, because he wanted to show a couple of dozen moves, but he only got to show like a dozen or something like that. So yeah, it was actually pretty funny. But apparently, going back what he said later when he was defeated, I think he's still not out of the tournament. So maybe we can see Cid and his sister fight or something like that. It will be actually pretty interesting to see that. So yeah, hopefully he's still not out of the tournament, and hopefully we can get a little bit more of the tournament. Although I doubt it, because going by how the episode ended, I don't know if that is going to be the case going forward. But yeah, that is something really important that happened in the episode. And then after that, it proceeds to the Cherry and Cid interaction. This is an interaction that I've been wanting to see, and I think all of you have also been wanting to see, because I wanted to see how Cid handled the situation with Cherry, because of course Cid doesn't know that Cherry actually sort of likes him. So yeah, I wanted to see how Cid handled the situation. And I mean, it was pretty weird how the whole thing went about, because I mean, throughout the whole scene, Cid didn't know exactly what was happening. He was just sort of questioning everything that was happening at the moment. So yeah, that was actually pretty funny. And even funnier was the scene between Alexia and Cherry, because apparently Cherry knew that Alexia and Cid had something going on. So of course she went to Alexia to hear exactly what had happened between Cid and Alexia, if they were still dating or something like that. And yeah, I mean, Alexia's response to it was that no, they were not dating. And then when she heard what Cherry had to say, her reaction was pretty funny, because although we didn't see her face, you can pretty much imagine it, because she was shaking her cup and everything was spilling. So yeah, that was actually pretty funny to see. And I also have to mention that in this episode, his dad didn't seem that scary, that shady. I mean, in the last episode, he did seem pretty shady, like he was a bad character, that he was planning something behind everybody's back. But in this episode, he seemed more chill out, more normal, if you can call it like that. Of course, this doesn't mean that my suspicions of the last episode have been thrown out the window, because that is not the case. Just because he appeared normal in this episode doesn't mean that he could potentially not be a bad character or something like that. But what it does mean is that there's also also the potential scenario that he is just a normal character, or I should say the growing scenario in where he is just a normal character. But like I said, that doesn't mean the theories of the last episode review were just thrown out the window, because that could still happen. But I guess now I should speak about the big thing that happened in this episode, and that was the ending. Apparently the armor guy, the full armor guy of the Diablo's Code, apparently attacked the school, which that is actually something pretty interesting, because I didn't think that things were going to get this big in this episode. I actually didn't expect the episode to go in that direction. So yeah, that is actually something that happened out of nowhere, because we were, watching the episode normally, things were developing, things were happening, and then out of nowhere we get this transition between normal things happening in the episode and then this big huge thing out of nowhere. But yeah, apparently nobody notices, only Cid. And in this, I don't know how you can call it, magic circle or nullifying circle or sphere or whatever you want to call it, you cannot cast magic, you cannot use magic. And because of this, basically everyone that depends on magic to fight, which to be honest I think is pretty much everyone in the school except for Cid, well, is screwed, because nobody will be able to properly defend against the invaders. Because Cid's whole motto, Cid's whole persona is of this character polishing and training his fencing style the normal way, the long way. He didn't take any shortcut by using magic or anything like that. He didn't use magic to suddenly polish his sword or his fencing skills. He went the long way. He trained from the bottom. He did the basic and kept training the basic and kept going on like that and like that and like that. So of course he's going to be one of the characters that is not threatened at all by the circle, by the sphere, in terms of ending his life. He's not threatened at all, because he can easily defend himself by just using his fencing style. So I guess you can also say his sister and potentially Alexia are also potential characters that can also do pretty well without magic. So yeah, but pretty much all the rest of the school is kind of in a tough situation, because they all depend heavily on magic. So I guess this will teach them a good valuable lesson to not depend so much on magic. And now the true ending scene. I said true ending scene because in general the invasion of the school is the ending scene. But at the last seconds of the episode, we get in a scene where Cid basically jumps to save Oriana from being slashed. And going by the reactions, I think everybody thinks he's probably dead. So I wonder how Cid will handle the whole situation. Will he just get up out of nowhere in the story in the scene of the next episode, as if nothing happened? Or if he will just stay there and just later come up with an excuse that he was just badly injured and that he wasn't really dead. So yeah, I wonder how he will handle that whole situation, because it is actually pretty interesting to see how he will turn everybody around from thinking that he's dead to not thinking that he's dead. Like I said, it could be the case that he just wakes up in the next episode out of nowhere. So yeah, but if he doesn't, it will be interesting to see how he explains it. And yeah, without Cid wanting, I think he's slowly but surely building up a harem, because he has Alexia and potentially Cherry. And going by how this episode ended, I think it's a pretty safe prediction or theory to make that Oriana herself could also start liking Cid. He already has a harem with Shadow's Garden, but this is something that he is building without him wanting, because he wants to be a background character. Who knows how many growths when the anime ends Cid will have. That is something pretty interesting to say the least. So yeah, that is everything that I wanted to say about this episode. I hope you enjoyed my review, and I guess I'll see you all in the next episode review.